Tonight on Broadcast and Bubbles, it's our new segment called The After Party, and we have our first special guest on the podcast, Evan Thompson. Welcome, Evan.
Hello, ladies. How's it going?
So good. We're so excited to have you here and for you to be our first virtual guest.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
so
so
excited.
excited. It's gonna
So
be a good time.
it's going to be great. So tonight we are going to be discussing Evan's involvement in the industry, some of his sort of behind the scenes knowledge with award shows and broadcasts and television and even movies as well, and kind of from the production side of things. So that's going to be a lot of what this happy hour segment is. We're going to talk to some industry professionals and sort of give you some behind the scenes, some insights, some wisdom from some industry professionals. So we thought this would be a great opportunity in quarantine, and it's also a great excuse to talk to a dear friend who is Evan.
Hello.
Yes. And Evan, to start us off, do you want to give us a little background? We know you basically through Addie. Do you want to tell us how you and Addie met? Like, where'd you come from? Et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. Well, let's share all the magic. I know Addie from university. We went to NYU. We were acting students together back in the day before moving to LA. But yeah, my personal story, I work in TV development here in LA, mostly in comedy. I was an actor in New York originally, and then I started a casting company, and I actually worked in casting for about 4 years before deciding that wasn't for me anymore, and I wanted to move to LA and work in comedy.
That's
But yeah.
amazing. Are you originally from New York? Whereabouts are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Westchester. I'm from a town called Mamaroneck, which is about a half hour, 45 minutes outside the city. And that's where I'm from.
Cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little more about how you switched in? You stepped away from acting into casting and what brought you into the current job you're doing?
Sure. So my journey was kind of unexpected, which is kind of like some advice I share upon others is just go for the ride. I was acting in New York, doing theater and doing a little bit of TV. It was really fun, but I wanted more of a challenge to see what starting my own company was like, and I loved casting, and I really liked putting people in the right roles. So I started doing that in college. I teamed up with a classmate, and we launched like an in-house casting company for NYU Films, and then we expanded to do fringe shows and some Fashion Week stuff. And it
I
was really
actually
fun.
didn't know you did that.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a good time. I love casting. It is such a fun world to work in, to get to play with other actors and help them get those roles that you dream of. It's really a rewarding experience.
Can
So yeah, I
you
worked in.
Oh, sorry. Can you
No,
expand on that a little bit? Like what casting for those of people who don't know, or like why casting is so important. Also, we've talked about this a little bit on our Oscar segment, where the industry or a lot of industry professionals feel like casting needs to be in the Academy Awards for that it needs to be awarded, and it's not at the moment. But yeah, just about your experience with casting and how important it is to
sure.
what we all see.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Casting is an underappreciated area in entertainment, especially when it comes to award season. Casting directors are often responsible for finding the new talent and bringing them to the producers and the directors and introducing to the world who those people are. And that's why you see in-house studios having casting directors or networks having casting directors in-house because they are responsible for bringing new talent to light. Um, and that's truly how a lot of new people get seen. And when I got to work in it, I was working in New York. I only did a little bit of casting in LA when I was sent over here. But when I was doing it in New York, it was really fun because I was focusing on musical theater and commercials. And so it would be a lot of new names coming in all the time because a lot of people who want to go on tours, it's, some of their early days of auditioning. So it's really fun to work with young, new, upcoming actors and do it. Yeah, it's super rewarding to do. I really loved it. And Go casting directors.
That's
Does
great.
that has that bled into your current work at all? Like, do you still do touches of that with where you are now, or is like casting completely out of your wheelhouse at this point?
I it comes in handy when it comes to for 2 parts, for packaging a project and trying to figure out who could be right for a role.
Mm.
I feel like I have a good knowledge of what might be a good fit from that experience, but also when it comes to actually casting a project, if and when, a show is ready to go on air, I actually really enjoy watching all the audition tapes, because as a producer, you still have a say in the casting process, right? It's a joint shared experience. Um, so it definitely is fun. The good news is I just don't have to do the work of getting all the tapes together anymore and getting all the names in front of me. Someone else is doing that for me now.
Yeah. So yeah, talk a little bit about this transition that you've had and into your current career, which is different from you kind of have come from all different facets of the entertainment world as with performance, and I would consider you still a performer, with lots of
Sure,
singing
why
in the
not?
car. But coming from a performance background, I would say all of the above: singing, dancing, acting, triple threat, and into casting, and now into the production side of things. Like, what was that transition from casting into production?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as smooth as you would think. I graduated NYU. That was the majority of the time I'd spent working in casting, and like you said, acting and doing all those wonderful, nice things you said about me. But I flew to LA and I was like, I want to leave New York. I've worked in New York for a long time. I'm from there. I want to try something new, a different challenge, and I really always wanted to work in TV, especially comedy. Um, it's amazing how any sort of comedy can make you laugh at the end of the day, no matter what you're feeling. It's nice to watch something warm and friendly that'll make you, feel good no matter how you're personally doing, which I love. And so I moved to LA, and my first job, I was an assistant to a producer on a network sitcom, and that was such an incredible crash course in how a multicam is run. And I did that for a while, and then I
And a
actually switched.
multicam's like yeah, he said sitcom, but just so multicam is also what is sort of, I guess, widely known as a sitcom.
Yes, it is. It is multi. It is more than one camera. It is live audience. It is a fun time. It's kind of a mixture of theater to me with making TV. And so I did that show for its first season, and then I went to another pilot in development and worked on a new pilot for another network. Um, before deciding that I wanted to become an agent and actually left that world. I've done a lot of career switches, you guys. I went over to a talent agency and did the training program and worked in the mailroom and delivered mail to agents for a while. Which
Amazing.
then, yeah,
Which
it's all
but I also
unexpected.
feel like that's pretty common. I think that I feel like there's so many people that I know that go into entertainment, and it's such a wide, like, that casts a very wide net of, like, I'm going into entertainment. There's so many different kinds of things that you can do. And once you really, like, figure out what your strengths are, I think that's the whole, like, dipping your toes
Mhm.
into a lot of different things and figuring out what angle you're going to attack it from, you
That's a
know?
great point.
Absolutely. I always say the mailroom is kind of like grad school for entertainment. I mean, there is grad school that you can go do for entertainment,
Yeah.
but a really great way to meet all the players and network and really get a crash course and understanding of everything works is to dive into a mailroom program. Um,
That is
and
interesting.
yeah, I'm still friends with everyone that I
How
did
long
that
were
with.
you doing that?
So this is like the unexpected part of my story, which is interesting because I was actually only there for 4 months. One of the actors from the show I was working on decided to launch a production company, and they
Cool.
remembered me from working on this multicam, and so they reached out, being like, "Hey, we're going to start this company. Would you come over and join?" Um, and that's when I say you should go for the ride and truly just follow your gut in what you want to do. And I was like, that sounds like a really cool opportunity that I can't turn down. And that's how I ended up in development. It was kind of like a happy accident that I was working towards it but didn't expect it in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to do that. And I've been there for the last 6.5 years.
Amazing.
Dang.
So now
That's
development,
awesome.
so that kind of producing, could you talk a little bit about what development is?
Yeah, it's I'll say it's a great job. I love it. It's everything from finding the scripts, meeting writers, figuring out what type of projects you want to bring to the table, and seeing them from creation all the way to being pitched, to being sold, to developing it for a specific network or streamer, and then getting it on air, and then overseeing it on air. It's truly all aspects of creating a TV show, and it's so fun.
That's great.
That's
That's great.
awesome. Can I ask,
Yeah.
do you tend, because you brought up that you love comedy and how it's wonderful, and Addie and I agree, comedy has been great, especially in the state of the world right now.
Yes,
Um,
very
Or
much
but
I'm
so.
just
are
not
you,
watching anything. Or no, the only new thing that I've started is just like that I have like no emotional attachment to and can't be affected by is like I started watching the 90 Day Fiance, the 90
uh,
days before, or like the first 90 days or something. So it's like a
but there's
spin-off.
comedy
Sure.
in that. It totally works.
Oh, there
It totally
is.
works.
But I just like don't want to feel right now,
Yeah, I
clearly.
have to say I haven't seen it, but it sounds like a good time.
Oh God.
Oh
It's
my
just
God.
it's brutal and I'm a little ashamed of myself. But you know, it's okay.
Hey, we all need relaxing quarantine views.
We
What?
do.
Yes, absolutely.
But I wanted to ask, are you mostly focused in comedy, or are you still dabbling in like heavy dramas or period pieces, or like what is your ilk? Like, are you sort of into one focus, or can you develop anything? Like, what is that
Sure.
like?
Um, so we have what's called a pod deal. So we represent a brand, of a studio and like what our name brand is. And, the thing that we focused at the beginning on was what we were known for, which was comedy. And so that was a type of projects that we would bring to the table, which was, awesome. And as we grew as a company, that afforded us the opportunity to take more risks in what we wanted to create. And so we do everything at this point. We've done unscripted to digital to dramas. We do have a few exciting dramas that allow us to play in a different world than we are normally expected to, which is nice.
It's great.
Actually, on that note, do you tend to work with one like broadcast company, or are you at all different networks and things where you're doing these things?
We're everywhere. We have a deal with the studio that's first
Cool.
look. So basically, we take the project to the studio. They decide whether or not they want to work with us. It's an independent studio, and therefore, if they pass, we still get to work on the project. And if they don't, we still get to work. Both ways we get to work on a project. It's a cool collaboration.
Great.
And so yeah, we have the unique opportunity to work everywhere.
That's
Amazing.
awesome. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
I feel like it was rude of me not to ask in the first place, but like, what is your cocktail, your bubbles? We're broadcasting bubbles, so we talk about broadcast and TV and movies and production, but what is your beverage of choice during this? What's your quarantini?
My quarantini is a Sauvignon Blanc. That is
Ooh,
my
Ah.
a nice crisp white wine to take the edge off.
that's good. That's good. I feel like everyone's
What are you
drinking time.
drinking?
I'm just having like a nice Moscow Mule. I'm sort of on the train of
Fancy.
been on the vodka train, but I was experimenting in some
We had the
gin
same
last
thought
week.
this morning.
I was experimenting with some gin last week, so that actually went pretty well.
Nice. Very nice.
Yes,
But
I'm convincing Addie to come to the gin side. It's not as scary as college made it for everybody.
it's true.
Yeah, I'm not we have a bottle of gin sitting on our counter that I don't think any of us have touched in 2 years. It looms a dark presence in our house.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that's
same.
hilarious.
We had our bottle of gin in this house is like it's pretty big, and it's probably I think I just made like a small dent in it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was opened, but we're not really gin
Yeah.
drinkers here.
That's
Neither
so
here.
funny.
So
White wine
anyway,
it is.
so my big question for you is are there any patterns or new patterns that you're seeing in entertainment? Because we've been covering a lot of these like live award shows and live specials, even like the American Idol live at home special.
Loved it.
You know, Did you watch?
I watched it. I don't know. Quarantine has brought me back to shows that I never would have. Like I watched American Idol when it first came out back in the day, and
Same.
because I'm
Same.
stuck at
Hell yeah.
home, yeah, Kelly Clarkson, let's go. But now, it's been years since I watched a show because I'm not used to going home and watching linear television. Um, and so now that I'm in quarantine, I'm rediscovering what it's like to sit at home and watch shows as they air live,
Mm,
which is awesome. So I actually really enjoyed the creativity of how they pulled it off with the limited resources that they could.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, I want to ask you a little bit. Like, so what is there any? So in that, we can actually just like pinpoint American Idol as a good example because it was a long show. But is there anything in there that you're like, wow, that's really awesome that they decided to make that decision versus, or any other live broadcast that you've seen where they're doing the live at home stuff? Is there stuff that you're liking that you're seeing, and then there's stuff that's not working for you, and what your take on it is?
Yeah, I think we're in a very difficult period of time for everyone. And when it comes to making entertainment, especially when you're mid-show, everyone has worked. What you don't see is the behind the scenes of how hard everyone has worked to get this show to where it is. And when it abruptly stops, it's heartbreaking in a way because you work so hard for this show, and so it's what I love to see is the creative ways to which American Idol and shows beyond that are figuring out ways to keep it going and to
Mm,
keep that family going of a show. It is difficult to make it land. I mean, I think we all know from work, from Zoom to technical difficulties can make it very difficult to figure out how to do it, and to connect with another person is not as easy when it's over, two
mm-hmm.
screens looking at each other versus an in-person connection. Um, but I think it is really cool what everyone has been able to pull off.
We had notes, but at the same time, you are being very kind and saying like it's just amazing that they're actually keeping the family together and getting something out, you know.
Yeah,
And now I
I don't
feel
think it's
bad about everything
anyone.
I've said.
No, look, there is there is no easy way to do this, and there's no way that's going to keep up the production quality or the quality of the format going. And so it's not going to be what it was, but to
Mm.
keep it going is a really fun, exciting challenge, and what that looks like is really cool. And bravo to everyone. A show called Rise at CBS. I haven't seen what they've done
Yeah.
yet. I'm
All
looking
rise. Yeah,
forward
yeah,
to All
yeah.
Rise. I'm looking forward to seeing what they did, but they did their episodes in quarantine as well.
Mystic Quest on Apple TV also did a quarantine episode.
Mm.
So I'm curious to see that because that one's actually getting really great reviews. But I think the
Okay.
structure of Mythic Quest, forgive me if I'm misquoting the title, but is a little more built for that. And I feel like Rise is going to be interesting because they are talking about how lawyers are dealing with quarantine. So it'll be interesting. But
Yeah, I mean, it's TV often reflects the real world, and so we're watching in real time. Uh, both the live shows adapt to it, but also scripted implement.
yeah,
What we're all going through.
Are you
yeah.
anticipating any big changes coming in the next year following? Are there any like shifts that you feel are going to be made, or just like things that you're noticing like, oh, this is happening in quarantine and like this might affect the way that we do things in the future? Are those kind of any kind of conversations that you're having right now with your team?
Yeah, I think we're currently in a holding pattern of everyone's waiting to see what happens going forward. I don't think besides the major change of a lot of shows obviously being halted, and it is that creative aspect, okay, of how do we move forward for the time being. And you're seeing those large impacts as to how many actors will be on screen probably at the same time. How many people are allowed
Yeah.
on set.
Are production like is production looking at some of the changes or the adaptations that they've had to make during this pandemic and seeing like, oh, this really cuts production costs and maybe we can incorporate that into something? Or is everybody just saying like, fuck it, who cares, like just go back to normal kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combo of both. I don't think we've seen exactly what that future looks like yet, or what those conversations even entail yet. But what has been super interesting is I noticed that NBC is going to air a Canadian series. So they acquired an already finished series and are bringing it over. So it is interesting to see, what they're, is it for now getting more formats? Is it, self-produced work at home? Or is it, the future of the American Idol? Or do things start returning back to normal once, states start reopening? And there are just going to be different regulations in place for what that looks like. I don't think we know yet what that is, and I couldn't even possibly predict it. I think we're all in
Yeah.
this together, and we're all trying to figure it out
Yeah, it's been an
what that'll
interesting
be.
conversation too about like insurance for sets, right? Because
Sure.
obviously you're working in television and a lot of networks that have their own insurance sort of situated, and it might shift, but more like the independent productions and what might happen for that because insurance will shift like for all of the reasons we're talking about as they're ironing out the details, but it'll be really interesting to see how that affects the smaller teams too.
Yeah. It's yeah. It's fascinating in what is going on type of way. It's very
Mhm.
weird. But I do hope everything returns to normal ASAP because
Yeah.
let's get everyone back to work.
Me
But
too.
we want to say on that note too, we obviously are talking about like your career and the creative side of things and where life is for your gig currently. But again, as Addie said, we talk about bubbles and we talk about broadcasts, and usually that's a lot of awards. So we would love to understand,
Yay, award
do you
shows.
have much of a relationship to award shows? Like, have you been to any? Have you submitted for any? Do you just watch them? Like, what's some things you love?
Sure. I mean, besides me and Addie have watched a bunch together. Let's see. Award shows are just fun. I don't think anyone makes TV in the hopes of winning an award. I think it's like a nice bonus on top of creating awesome content. So that's never never the goal. However, it's a fun time. It's just fun to collaborate with people and see work being rewarded. I think the coolest experience I've ever had was I was backstage at the Oscars a few years ago, and actually came
Cool.
straight from that to finish watching the Oscars at Addie's. So I was both at a viewing
Oh, the
party.
glamour.
And, oh,
Yes.
yes, I was at both in one evening, and it was a really good time.
That's
Oh, I
amazing.
kind of love that.
So what was
Anything
that Oscar vibe
Yeah.
like? So being there, did you go to a rehearsal too ahead of the actual Oscar day?
Yeah, I mean my my favorite story, or one of the stories. So I got to attend rehearsal first, and I remember I was waiting for someone from my team to show up, and you go through a lot of security, and then you're in a lobby of this hotel entrance, and I'm waiting there, and out of the car comes Oprah. Um, so this is just rehearsal. It's not the time. And I was just standing off to the side. I must have looked like I was one of the people running the event for some reason, because instead of going up to the table, she came straight up to me and just stood in front of me and was like, "Hi." And I look up and there's Oprah, and I'm like, "Hi." I don't know why. It took me like a long time to figure out that she thought I was giving her instructions on where to go, but fully like I didn't know where I was going. And because it's Oprah, I'm so nervous to say anything but hi. So we both are just staring at each other at this point, just going, hi. And then finally someone came over and was like, this way. And I was like,
Bye.
great, that was a moment.
You're like,
Yeah, no,
I was just blessed by Oprah.
it's she is a gem of a human, and it was very cool to be awkward in front of her in that
Yeah.
moment. But no, it's so interesting. So the live show, um, I was backstage the entire time. So from underground the theater to literally like seeing the audience from the side of the wings. And what was so interesting is how relaxed it is and what a good time everyone is having. Like the energy was, everyone is there to celebrate, everyone's having a good time, and it feels like you get this like very glamorous spectacle on TV, but in which it is glamorous, but it's just a really fun time, and everyone seems so laid back. Now I'm sure that wasn't for the producers as laid back because you're running a tight live, shift of a show. But for everyone involved, it seemed like everyone was having a really fun time.
That's so nice to hear, because I feel like the Oscar rep is kind of that, unlike the Golden Globes, that the Oscars feel a little bit more stiff and professional and like tight-lipped. But it's nice to hear that it wasn't like that for you when you were there. Did you get a sense of any of the stress of the producers, or did it feel kind of similar to other productions, behind the scenes stuff that you've seen, where it's just like, okay, this is a live show, like we just gotta do it?
I think it's one of those things that have been around for so long that it's a well-oiled machine. And yes, new people come in all the time, and it's different each year. But it's still run like a tight ship. And so from my perspective, which is limited, was that that tension wasn't in the air. I'm sure, like I said, that there are producers, with headsets on the side.
The control room is like, fuck.
They're very, I'm sure, because it's live, and live is stressful and nerve-wracking, as we've seen before at the Oscars. But no, it was surprisingly a warm, fun environment backstage, and everyone was joking around and having a good time, and it was fun.
Oh, that's so lovely. I love that.
Do you have a favorite award show that you are just like, every year it's like, this is the best day? Do you have a favorite? Or do you have like a top 3, I guess?
Yeah, I love the Golden Globes. I love the Golden Globes because like I said, like the award, who cares at the end of the day who gets the award? It's a really nice acknowledgement. But like I said, I'm a huge comedy fan, and from Ricky Gervais to Amy and Tina, they go so hard on the comedy, and they're so willing to focus on that, and everyone seems to be having a good time. I just really enjoy that energy. The Golden Globes for sure.
Oh, I love
a good
that.
one. I was expecting you to say the Tonys, because I've watched the Tonys with you a couple times.
well, sure. That's the thing. Like, as a musical theater nerd, and a theater nerd in general, the Tonys will always hold a special place in my heart.
But I think you're right in terms of like the copy, like the writers, the writing of the Golden Globes is always really tight and really strong. And even though, like, I think Megan and I prefer award shows that have more of a performance-based situation going on, that it's like performance award, performance award, and the Golden Globes doesn't have that. There aren't any performances, but like the copy's so tight and so well done and produced, and it's also a pretty tight space that they're working with, so I think that also makes it a little easier to manage. Sure. But yeah, you're right, like the comedy, the digs, the sort of stand-upness of it is so fresh.
Yeah, it's a good time. And ladies, I can't wait to watch another Golden Globes with you when we're allowed to all be in the same room together.
I know.
Oh, I love it.
It'll be interesting to see what happens next season, if stuff's really getting postponed, if things are like, I don't know what that's going to be like next year, what that will look like, if there will be these, because the Super Bowl next year, if we don't have a vaccine, could be to an empty audience.
It's definitely weird.
Had a very strong visual of the halftime show being performed on Zoom, and I had a mild panic attack.
You know what? I'm all. If Lady Gaga and Ariana Grande want to do Rain on Me on Zoom, I will tune in to watch that halftime show.
I was just gonna say, this would probably be the time if you wanted to roast me, to talk about how we met.
Oh, geez.
That story.
I must say, the story of how me and Addie met is such a gem of a memory. And so we were in college, and it was sophomore year of college, I think. And I was with my best friends at the time. And we went to this party across the hall, in the dorm room setting. And that dorm room happened to be Addie's. I've never met Addie. I did not know Addie. I was having a good time. It was great to be, meeting new people. The night's coming to an end. I met Addie, and I'm leaving, and Addie shows me to the door, and I leave, and the door closes behind me, and all of a sudden, from the other side of the door, I hear, "Who the F was that kid?"
Yeah.
It was.
I really hope Addie actually said F.
Oh no! This is the edited version for the podcast. I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
You can say
swear.
shit. You could say
I can say
anything.
anything. Yeah, she said, "Who the fuck is that kid?" And I laughed so hard. I remember like pausing. I just like cracked up laughing in the hallway because I'm like, I don't even know what she meant by that, but it's just so funny to hear that through a door. And then I don't know, was it like a week, 2 weeks later? We met again, and it was just love, and we've been best friends ever since. And that is almost 10 years.
A dark time in my life. No, I was just in a bad. Anyway, I mean, I don't even know what my head was in such a weird place. But
yeah, we were at a college party.
Evan was like the friendliest, nicest, as you know, like Evan's the life of the party. He's the nicest person in the room, and I think I was more just like, I think what I was trying to say was, why is that person being so nice to me? But I was just being like, I was just in a dark place in my life.
Yeah, it's similar to the Oprah story. It's like the same. Yeah. It's the same level of like what just happened.
The absolute same.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my god, I love it. Oh,
so great.
You had such great points to make, and I want to give you a moment if there's anything else you want to say about your job, about broadcasts, if there's any projects you're working on you want to talk about. Now is the moment, Mr. Evan Thompson.
Ooh, a closing statement. What do I want to inspire today's youth with? Entertainment. I don't think any of us would say this isn't a grind. Doing what we love, but it's also doing what we love, and therefore it's super rewarding to do that. And we're also lucky and grateful to work in this business. And so to anyone out there who's graduating, or to anyone who's listening to this who is looking forward to being a part of this business, it's a really warm and welcoming business. But you really gotta really push and persevere for what you want and what you want to do, and just go for it. Make your own work, collaborate with your friends, make podcasts, make your own shorts. And it really is a community that is welcoming, and I feel that way. And it's a hard business, and if you love it and you want to be a part of it, go for it.
And always ask, who the fuck was that?
Yes, that is also one way to meet new people. So, do that as well.
Always be curious.
Yes. Ask the hard-hitting questions.
Well, that's great advice, Evan. And we're excited to continue to follow. Don't you have a private Instagram?
No, mine is public. It is at EvTrev. Shout out. I'm not on it too much, but like check it out anyway, because I don't know. I don't have a TikTok.
Anything? I know you should. Is there anything that you have coming down the pipeline that you're excited to talk about, or can you not talk about it yet?
Sure. We have a lot of things coming down the pipeline. Hopefully, I don't know if I can actually talk about any of them openly yet, but coming. And then stay tuned. We have a lot of animation on our slate. We have a lot of scripted series
picking up right now. Like, animation's the one thing that quarantine has been like, go, be free.
Totally, because you can do it from home. It's not easy, but it's definitely something that you can do remotely. So animation's picking up, which is great. We have a lot of it. We love it. And scripted has been fun. So stay tuned. A lot more to come.
You rock. Yay, Evan. Such fun talking with you.
Ladies, it is a blast to drink some bubbles and talk about broadcast. How fun.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For being our first guest for the after party. And stay tuned, friends, because we're looking forward to having more guests on the show. And we thank Evan so much for being with us and chatting to us about all of his experiences here in Hollywood. We love you.
I love you, ladies, too. Cheers. Stay tuned for more.